What I find so fascinating about this film and your role in it is just how I'm sure you're getting this, how full circle and poetic it is with Friday the 13th, a series that you starred in. Like Friday the 13th, both the original and part two end with a dream sequence that captures the trauma in this sense of paranoia the final victim is going to probably live with. In this film, your character shares a story that captures that very same feeling. So I'm curious what your reaction was to reading that, what Chris put together, this monologue that verbally paints a picture akin to the images of Friday the 13th that have stayed with us over the decades.
It was incredible. You read the whole script. I'm not one of those people who looks for my part, sifting through the pages, because I really want to get a sense of what Chris Nash's vision was throughout the telling of this story of this Johnny character and also the other people within the story. And as I'm reading it, I when you read a script on paper, you don't get the feeling that he gives you when you see the film. You read it kind of like, with your own imagination, like, oh, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. When you see the film and you feel just your surroundings and the nature, and then you listen to this woman's story, and she's talking about things that visualize what happens within in a violent nature, but also what has happened, let's say, to a character like Vicky, or Jason's victims in the past. Just that you I don't care about lifeness about these killers, like wild animals.
Mhm.
I go running through the woods. I do trail running, and I'll tell you, if I hear a coyote, I'm out of there. I'm running because I know that thing is going to rip me to shreds like a horror movie.
Yeah, like that monologue is so good, by the way. That one line that you've already referenced here, like that you say about animals don't get too hung up on reason. And
Yeah,
in my opinion, just I feel like that line is just as impactful and haunting as something like the movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, The Strangers, when three terrorizers reply to a question, like they it's just people being at home in a cabin, and then three terrorizers come into their house and push them to a corner, a very violent corner, and that they simply ask the terrorizers, "Why are you doing this?" And they say, "You were home. You were home." And
wow.
then it just has like that kind of weight to it. And so did you notice the weight of that line, or that line about 100 bee stings when it comes to describing the feeling of being mauled? Because did it cause you to pause, think, or disturb you? Did you approach that line or those lines any differently than the rest because of the punch they carry, or did you try not to think about it and think more about normalizing it?
Well, that's where Chris Nash comes in as a visionary of a director for the mood of this movie and where he wanted to see it go. Because I came in on my first day, okay, and I wasn't actually driving on that first day. My truck was being pulled by a flatbed truck,
Mm,
and so it made so much noise. We had to completely reshoot the entire sequence with me actually driving the truck with cameras here and cameras here and here and
wow.
here. But what happened was, after that first day of shooting, Chris Nash called me into, the room with one of the other actors,
Yeah.
and because I don't want to give anything away, with one of the other actors, and he said, we need to talk about the direction of this, because your version is not quite what I envisioned. I was really punching out the words more. Like, when I would describe it, for lack of how to put it, I guess I was doing a New York version of the
Mm,
woman, not a woman who sees this all the time.
right.
You know what I mean? Who lives it and sees and has family members who have been mauled by animals who just don't care, and what they say it feels like. So he had me bring down that performance, because he says it'll be more impactful if you just make it sound like this is what happens, and that's life, and that's end of life, and so he's responsible for me really taking it slowly And when I saw the film, I thought, what a genius. Of course, that's how I should have played it. And I obviously I did with his direction, but it was quite an adjustment coming from being loud Lauren from New York to being a very calm woman like, oh yeah, there's a bear walking outside my window, which is actually how I am at home because they really do that. But yeah, the describing of what that was like was really quite incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's such a mystery to your character in this film to where I think we it deserves its own film really because like there's so much as you mentioned here like there's a history to her that can be felt like there's the classical music that she's listened to, there's what's hanging from her visor, her rear view mirror, and how she talks like you were just saying, like seen worse. There's no missing pieces. Like there just this it's haunting. It really is. Like this there's this balance to her of saying things that may be too real for someone to hear in a moment like that. It's a little bit left of center, but still she's caring. I don't know. It was just really compelling. So I'm very curious just about like what you were thinking about maybe perhaps beyond the page and how you carved that out and made her feel like we need her backstory.
Yeah, I approached it as if I was stringing pearls of a necklace together.
Mm,
And each pearl was a different piece of this story that she was imparting to this stranger who she's giving a ride to, who's clearly traumatized by something. Her lack of response to the woman, to my character. You know, she clearly has gone through something traumatic. And by telling the story and piecing the pearl necklace together with bits of information, she's looking to see, not to get a rise out of this passenger, but just to see her reaction to what she's telling her, to what the woman is telling this passenger that she picks up. Yeah, that was my inner dialogue approach
mm, yeah.
to that. Almost in a way, not to let her know, hey, whatever you're feeling, it's okay because stuff happens, but maybe in that way, maybe that's part of the woman's story too, because she is compassionate. Although at the end, I mean, I will say the way the woman looks up at her and starts doing a little life-saving type of thing, I was wondering, is she gonna jump up and just start strangling her?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You never knew what was around the corner. And that exists throughout the whole film in the way that that Chris Nash presents it, because by staying with the killer through these like in between moments that we never really see or have never really seen before in a film like this. Most of the time, especially with Jason, he's popping out like in part two, he's popping out of the window. He's doing, and we don't get to see like that calculated mind work.
Yeah, it's like a progression of horror that Chris Nash created. It's not jumping, jump scares. It's like that. There's a sense of foreboding with every step the Johnny character takes towards wherever he's going next victim, a house, a campsite, water. You just That's what makes this film so successful too. You just feel that creepiness without it being in your face.
Yeah. Would you be interested in seeing Chris Nash's take on some of the films that you've been a part of, whether it's part two or Girls Night Out, to see like what the in between moments would be like?
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah. He's just such a cool guy, he's really laid back, very easygoing. And to think that his mind created this is so compelling.
I personally love to go back to it. Like I love that it just ends with this meaty conversation because there's so many films like the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like yes, it's horrifying that she's screaming and then also like this moment of joy, but you also kind of want to know what that conversation may have been like post that event, and this film kind of gives us some insight into that moment. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I would love to see more conversations meaty conversations like this in film. But I'm curious about what it has been like for you. I don't know how much you've stayed in touch with the genre over the decades, but what it's been like to see the evolution of horror, like what aspects have kind of stuck around, what has changed in these filmmakers who come in like Chris Nash to kind of push the envelope or take things that are familiar but present them through a different lens, or look at the in between moments like we talked about, like, and what scares people today, what versus what scared people then.
Yeah, I mean, um, Chris, with this movie, he deconstructs what has been fed to the public most recently, that ultra gore. How many people can you get throwing up in the aisles? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I mean, there are some movies, even Saw, I had a hard time watching, and I was younger and had more of a stomach for it. But even that was difficult for me to see. But as I meet more people, I go to conventions and
Yeah.
whatnot, and as I meet more people who have different movies within the genre, so I want to watch their movies because next time I see them, I want to say, "Hey, my dude, I saw your movie. It was wild. It was a wild ride." So I've watched a lot of movies in the evolution, and it seems like when you drive a stick shift, and you do the whole clutch thing and all that, or you're on your motorcycle and you rev it up, and all of a sudden you just go. I feel like that's what's happened with horror. It started with the creepy Catholic horror, then it goes into psychological type of horror, like The
Mhm.
Shining, and then the serial killer horror came
Right.
into play, and that's where you see a lot of those jump scares. And I think for Chris to, you know, scale it back and to deconstruct it
Yeah.
will maybe introduce a new way of looking and experiencing horror or slasher movies.
I know we're just about out of time, but I'd be pretty upset with myself if I didn't ask this. And as you mentioned, you've been to conventions, so I'm sure you've spoke about it. But I'm curious what your opinion is on Paul's fate in part two, Friday 13th. I don't know if there was a discussion amongst the crew during production, but it's like it seems to be like the conversation that's been ongoing with the franchise, because we never quite find out, and there's all these like really interesting dissections online about like this is why he's alive, this is why he's dead, and I'm curious about that conversation that you've had.
Oh, okay. Well, Amy talks about this, so I'm allowed to say it
Okay.
publicly. But apparently, there was a sequel to part two that never got made. It was a different sequel altogether.
Yeah.
And the character of Ginny is off at college, and I guess she's in a sorority house or dorm or whatever. And she opens her refrigerator, and Paul's head is in the refrigerator.
Ah.
So, but that movie never got made because, everybody's just, it sort of fell apart, and
Yeah.
uh, people took over the reins. But that's what she said. And she said that out loud on a panel at a convention. So I can repeat it here. Yeah. But
Okay.
I mean, for a long time, I thought maybe Paul was the killer, to tell you the truth.
That is true. Yeah.